Minnesota Vikings minicamp is over and still no starting quarterback. But when you look at the breadcrumbs of the Minnesota Vikings quarterback situation, who is the guy? Is it Kyler Murray or is it J.J. McCarthy? And that's what we're going to look at. After Kevin Seifert just released an article on a lot about the Minnesota Vikings defense, offense, receivers, the most important thing is the quarterback situation. And here's what Kevin Seifert had to say in his article. He wrote, Murray remains the favorite to win the starting job in training camp, even as incumbent J.J. McCarthy made clear moves to stabilize his rocky 2025 performance. Murray's advantage in arm talent, throwing to difficult spots, varying the speeds and trajectory of his passes, was evident. And what might be the most significant differentiator in the competition, his elite level running ability, was dormant during the non-contact drills NFL teams use during spring practices. And he also wrote this: McCarthy appeared more in command of the offense than he did last spring, even as he occasionally sprayed an inaccurate pass downfield. So what's the takeaway from Kevin Seifert's article? Kyler Murray has more talent than J.J. McCarthy. And that was evident in Minnesota Vikings spring practices. What is also noteworthy is that McCarthy has more command because he's been in this offensive system for 3 years. And that should shock nobody. J.J. McCarthy has been in Kevin O'Connell's complex scheme forever. And Murray signed here 4 months ago. So, advantage J.J. McCarthy. But what also sticks out is that even with J.J. McCarthy working so hard on these mechanics, his back foot looks better. Even with him doing his best to add touch to passes, which he has shown some growth in, he is still occasionally spraying an inaccurate pass down the field. Even in spring practices, when nobody's going 100%, you really can do your best to fine-tune the details of your mechanics. McCarthy is still spraying the ball down the field. But here's the truth about the Minnesota Vikings quarterback situation. Neither of these quarterbacks are perfect. Kyler Murray has holes in his game. He's short. He can hardly see over offensive linemen. His studying habits have been questioned in his past. Yet has something written in his contract because of his Call of Duty addiction. He's got holes in his game. He's had injuries before. He's not the perfect quarterback. And J.J. McCarthy certainly isn't the perfect quarterback either. He sprays the ball downfield. He can hardly stay on the field. He's inaccurate. So neither of these quarterbacks are the perfect quarterback. The question boils down to this, because neither Kyler or J.J. McCarthy are the perfect quarterback. Who has more talent? Which quarterback naturally gives the Minnesota Vikings their best chance to win? And the answer to that question isn't close. The quarterback with more natural talent throwing the ball and making plays happen with his feet is Kyler Murray. I know Kevin O'Connell is saying all of the right things about it being a quarterback competition between J.J. McCarthy and Kyler Murray. An open competition. Let the best man win. But there is a big part of Kevin O'Connell that knows Kyler Murray is most likely to win this quarterback competition. So technically it is. But in reality, is it? And I think we all know the answer is no. Karl-Anthony Towns won an NBA championship with the New York Knicks. And Minnesota sports fans are just living it up, living vicariously through the Big Cat. And we're going to talk about that. But first, I needed to tell you about Hoagland Farms beef. Because are you too tired of paying too much in the grocery store for your beef? Ground beefs are $6, $7, $8 a pound. Chuck roast and steaks are $10, $11 a pound. For Hoagland Farm beef, you pay one flat price, $4 a pound. For all of your beef. For steaks, chuck roast, ground beef, all of it. Ribs, $4 a pound. For all of your beef at Hoagland Farms. And you get 20% off your first order by mentioning you heard it from Tim. 952-491-1541. 952-491-1541. Get the best price for your beef today and get the best beef. 100% rotationally raised grass-fed beef. Hoagland Farms beef. Karl-Anthony Towns won an NBA championship with the Knicks. And there's just been this crusade of Minnesota sports fans that are excited for Cat to win the title. Because he was one of us. He was a Minnesota Timberwolves player for a long time. And because he won one, it feels like we've won one. But I'm not letting people escape with that bull crap. Karl-Anthony Towns won a title. He adds to the Minnesota sports curse of guys that leave and then win a title. But Minnesota sports fans are so quick to forget that they were calling for Karl-Anthony Towns to leave this town for years. His whining with the officials, his faith. What? Minnesota sports fans, when Towns was a part of the team, couldn't wait for him to get traded. He has been a part of trade speculation from the fans' perspective for years, and then it finally happened. And when it happened, Minnesota sports fans were finally, yes, get rid of him. I can't handle his whiny butt. And now that he wins a title, Minnesota sports fans are like, oh yeah, I always loved Cat. I was always rooting for him. He was always my guy. Always one of my favorite players. Loved being in Minnesota. It's like, you're so quick to forget that you had so much dislike for this man on your basketball team because of his antics on the court, because of his foul trouble. And now that he wins a title, you're thinking, oh, I always loved Towns. It was the missing piece to the championship team. Can't stand it. That double standard pisses me off. It was cool, though, that Karl-Anthony Towns gave a shout out to Anthony Edwards in his post-game talk with SportsCenter, because so many in Karl-Anthony Towns' situation would have rubbed it in to Minnesota or fired shots back at Minneapolis and the Timberwolves organization. Oh, they didn't believe in me. I showed them fools. Yeah, you don't forget that trade. He didn't do any of that. So that showed some maturity from Karl-Anthony Towns, which I was very impressed with. And following this series, Towns had the highest plus-minus in NBA history, which is so interesting. People will say, oh, plus-minus doesn't matter when it doesn't support their theory, and it's the most important stat when it does support their theory. But Karl-Anthony Towns winning an NBA championship confirms everything that we thought about him when he was playing for the Timberwolves. He can be a piece to a championship team, but he can't be the guy on a championship team. He was one of the guys in Minnesota with Anthony Edwards. He was one of those guys. He was a piece to the Knicks. Jalen Brunson was the guy. OG Anunoby was the guy. Those were the guys. Towns was the perfect puzzle piece. In the closeout game, Towns had 2 points, 10 rebounds, 5 turnovers, and fouled out in 23 minutes. Earlier in the series, he put up 21 in game 2, 18 in game 1. Played phenomenal against Wemby defensively. But if Towns is the guy, the Knicks can't win game 5 with that stat line because they had been too reliant on Karl-Anthony Towns. So, yes, Towns won a championship, but he never would have won a championship in Minnesota as the guy. He went to the Knicks into the perfect situation where he could let Jalen Brunson do what Jalen Brunson does, OG Anunoby do what OG Anunoby does, and Towns can play that third wheel, fourth wheel kind of guy where he plays defense, he stretches the defense offensively because he can shoot threes, and that's what it is about, stretching the defense. And what's so interesting about it is the Timberwolves traded Towns. Because they traded Towns, they became less of a threat against the Spurs. Because the Knicks with Towns, who can stretch to the floor versus Wemby, can get his butt out of the paint, is the perfect situation. Wemby can't just sit his butt in the paint. He's got to go out to the three-point line and guard Towns. So Towns was the piece to the Knicks championship. He was not the guy. And it's the perfect situation. But this adds to the Minnesota sports curse. Towns leaves, championship 2 years later. Darnold leaves, championship 1 year later. Kevin Love leaves in 2014, championship in 2016. Garnett leaves in 07, championship in 08. David Ortiz leaves in 2002, championship in 2004. So it appears that the Timberwolves and this Minnesota sports in general are cursed beyond imagine. Superstar leaves, championship. You think about the most surprising player on the list of superstars that has left Minnesota without a championship is Randy Moss. Went to Oakland for a year or two, and then to New England. Perfect season until the Super Bowl and lost. Of all of the talented players that have left Minnesota to another team, the guy that doesn't have the championship that is most shocking is Randy Moss. But what is the curse going to transform into is my next question. What will the curse become? Because the curse is the curse. And curses can transform. And I think many people are thinking that when J.H. McCarthy loses the job, the Minnesota sports curse is going to transfer to him. Well, he's going to leave. He's going to become the starting quarterback of some other organization, and they're going to win a championship. We're cursed. But I think the curse is going to transform itself into a new curse. The curse is going to be Kyler does enough in Minnesota to have a winning year. And because Minnesota is going to have PTSD from letting Darnold walk in and win a Super Bowl, they're going to re-sign Kyler to a big contract, and then Kyler's going to get hurt for the season. That's what the Minnesota sports curse will become in a year. That's my prediction. Thank you for watching and for listening wherever you are doing so. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button, and thank you for making The Brawl with Tim Paul a part of your day.